In a pivotal moment for global economics, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer took to the stage at the G20 summit in Johannesburg, South Africa, with a powerful call for renewed international cooperation. His message was urgent. The world must unite to revive global growth, ensure financial stability, and tackle pressing issues like open trade and sustainable development. His speech not only set the tone for the summit, but also put forward a blueprint for a future in which no country, no matter its size or resources, is left behind in the pursuit of economic growth.
The role of the G20 is critical at this moment. Growth must be a mission for us all to embrace, as the means to improve lives, to fund public services, and to keep our people secure. The G20 has worked together before to fix fundamental problems in the global economy. We need to find ways to play a constructive role again today in the face of the world challenges. And I'd like to see us come together around a 5-point plan for growth that leaves no one behind.
Starmer began by emphasising the critical role that the G20 plays at this critical juncture. As the world faces heightened economic uncertainty, particularly in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Prime Minister underscored the importance of collective action. Keir Starmer, British Prime Minister. The role of the G20 is critical at this moment. Growth must be a mission for us all to embrace as the means to improve lives, to fund public services, and to keep our people secure. These words resonate deeply with the global context of the summit. After decades of rapid globalisation, the world finds itself in a moment of tension politically, economically and socially. Rising inequality, shifting trade relations and regional instability have compounded the challenges governments must face. Starmer's call for unity came at a time when the world needs it most. Starmer's speech made it clear that economic growth isn't just about numbers or GDP. For him, it's about improving lives and making sure that prosperity is felt by everyone, regardless of where they live. The Prime Minister also highlighted a clear message: economic expansion must be a shared mission. This isn't a zero-sum game where some nations win while others lose. Instead, it's about building a global economy that benefits all, particularly the emerging economies that continue to face significant challenges. The Prime Minister's address focused on 5 key areas that he believes are essential for achieving this shared mission of growth. These are promoting open trade, supporting emerging economies, addressing the global debt crisis, ensuring financial stability, and ensuring that no one is left behind. In his speech, Starmer emphasised the need for open and balanced trade. For him, this is more than just a theoretical principle, it's a practical necessity. With rising protectionist sentiments and trade wars threatening global supply chains, Starmer pushed for a return to stability where trade agreements foster mutual growth and lower tariffs and barriers. Keir Starmer, British Prime Minister. We should promote open and balanced trade.
We should promote open and balanced trade, taking steps to liberalise trade where we can, with new agreements that lower tariffs and barriers and return to the stability and certainty that business needs. This is a real priority for my government. We do need to work together to tackle the unique challenges facing emerging economies, especially in Africa, whether it's the growing debt burden or the financing gap for the Sustainable Development Goals. This G20 is the moment to respond to these structural challenges and to deliver more stable and resilient finance.
Taking steps to liberalise trade where we can, with new agreements that lower tariffs and barriers and return to the stability and certainty that business needs. This is a real priority for my government. Starmer made it clear that a focus on open trade would help rebuild global business confidence. Trade agreements, according to Starmer, should not only be fair and equitable, but should also create certainty in markets that have seen significant volatility. The need to liberalise trade, reduce tariffs and increase access to markets is central to fostering an environment where businesses small and large can thrive. As the world economy continues to face turbulent times, the calls for more open and free trade couldn't be more timely. International business leaders have long advocated for fewer trade barriers to encourage global commerce, and Starmer's speech echoed these concerns, positioning the UK as a proponent of liberalised trade on the global stage. Another key point that Prime Minister Starmer raised was the need to focus on emerging economies, particularly in Africa. As the world's poorest regions continue to face structural economic challenges, Starmer pushed for the G20 to take on a more active role in solving these issues. Starmer highlighted Africa's growing debt burden and the financing gap for sustainable development as two areas where G20 nations must focus their efforts. The debt burden, exacerbated by the pandemic and its economic consequences, has placed many African nations in a precarious position, struggling to balance economic growth with the servicing of foreign debt. Keir Starmer, British Prime Minister: we do need to work together to tackle the unique challenges facing emerging economies, especially in Africa, whether it's the growing debt burden or the financing gap for the Sustainable Development Goals. This G20 is the moment to respond to these structural challenges and to deliver more stable and resilient finance. His words came as a stark reminder of the reality that many African nations face. Despite decades of progress, Africa remains home to many of the world's most impoverished countries, and the pandemic has only exacerbated these issues. Starmer's call for action on debt relief and financing for development underscores the need for multilateral solutions to these problems. The Prime Minister's address recognised that the G20 has an opportunity to help reform global finance systems to support emerging economies. His remarks called for an international effort to create more stable and resilient financial systems that could better support economic growth in developing countries. This is not just a moral imperative, it's an economic one, as the world cannot prosper if large segments of the global population are left behind. The global debt crisis was another significant issue raised by Starmer during his speech. The economic fallout from the pandemic has led to an increase in national debts worldwide. Many countries are struggling to manage these debts, and for some, it's leading to economic stagnation and a lack of ability to invest in future growth. Starmer's call for addressing the global debt crisis is timely, as many developing countries are burdened with unsustainable debt levels, further exacerbated by the rising cost of financing. The call for more stable and resilient finance systems is crucial if countries are to overcome this crisis. Without mechanisms in place to restructure and alleviate debt burdens, many nations will be unable to make the necessary investments in infrastructure, healthcare, and education that are essential for long-term growth. The Prime Minister's remarks called for a more global approach to debt relief, particularly for the world's poorest nations. This would be a significant shift in policy, as historically the G20 has been more focused on market-oriented solutions. Starmer's push for systemic change underscores the need for a more equitable global financial system that can help address the most pressing challenges. Starmer's vision for global growth also includes ensuring financial stability and predictability. The past several years have shown how fragile the global financial system can be, especially in the face of major disruptions like the COVID-19 pandemic. Financial markets have been volatile, and many economies are still recovering from the shockwaves of the pandemic. Keir Starmer, British Prime Minister: this is a real priority for my government. His government's focus on financial stability stems from a recognition that economic growth cannot be achieved without a stable financial environment. For businesses to invest and for economies to grow, they need a predictable financial landscape where risks are managed and markets are stable. Starmer called on the G20 to take action in strengthening financial institutions and systems, ensuring they are resilient enough to weather future crises. This is an essential part of his strategy for ensuring that the global economy remains stable and secure in the long run. Starmer's overarching message was that no one should be left behind in the pursuit of economic growth. His five-point plan, which he presented at the G20 summit, emphasised inclusivity and the need for multilateral cooperation to solve global problems. Economic growth should not only be about lifting up the wealthiest nations, but should also prioritise emerging economies and the most vulnerable communities across the world. Keir Starmer, British Prime Minister: Growth must be a mission for us all to embrace as the means to improve lives, to fund public services and to keep our people secure. For Starmer, economic growth must lead to real, tangible benefits for people, not just businesses or governments. It must lead to better public services, a higher standard of living and greater security for all people, regardless of their geographic location or economic status. As the summit continues, world leaders are being asked to reflect on these issues. Will they unite behind Starmer's call for a collective approach to economic growth? Or will they continue to act in isolation, putting short-term national interests ahead of long-term global cooperation? The coming days will be critical in determining whether the G20 can rise to the challenge of addressing the most pressing global economic issues of our time. The world is watching closely, and the outcome of these discussions will shape the future of the global economy for years to come.